Good evening. I call this meeting to order at 6:21 p.m. Directors present tonight are Director Kuhlenberg, Director DeFreitas, and myself, meaning we have a quorum. Thank you to our interpreter, Rodrigo. Would you please share the interpretation instructions with our participants? And then we can turn on the interpretation section. Okay. The first business in order is the approval of the agenda. Directors, are there any proposed changes to the agenda? No. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
I second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Our next agenda item is our opening celebrations and updates by Superintendent Dr. Anderson.
Okay, it's mid-September, so that means things are incredibly busy between homecomings and field trips and assessment windows. It's a really busy time in our schools, but a couple of critical celebrations tonight. Want to thank the Aspen Community Foundation. We were awarded this week over $20,000 in support of Roaring Fork School District early childhood education families. This is the first time that we've partnered with ACF around early childhood. We're really grateful for this investment and support. Want to congratulate again Rodrigo Andrade for his leadership on the grant application. So he's 2 for 2. And Lori Brumbaugh and her team and the work they do in early childhood. And in addition, with that team, we had a visit this past week from the Buell Foundation, and in particular would like to share appreciation for Paulina Lopez, the director at Crystal River Elementary School's preschool program, and Inez Bourbano, the director at Riverview School's early childhood program. They hosted the site visit by Buell Foundation and just did a phenomenal job showcasing our preschool programs, program philosophy, curriculum routines, and of course, our darling kids. So thanks to the early childhood team, they have a all-day training scheduled this Friday. So it is a day where in our early childhood strategic plan, we worked really hard to really professionalize the work and make sure there were days when our entire early childhood staff could huddle to do professional development. That'll be this Friday. Want to also celebrate the high school deans of culture, school counselors, and especially high school student leaders who attended the Youth Celebrating Diversity workshop in Denver on Saturday. This training is a key initiative that's in service to strategic priority number 1, students first. The students engaged in workshops led by Denver University professors and students on a couple of key topics: how to form a club and recruit members, how to manage and navigate conflict resolution and transparent group decision-making, how to structure meetings to ensure equitable voice, and how to engage all opinions with civility in a polarized world. So sounds like a pretty powerful agenda. Our Roaring Fork School District teams met teams of students and staff working towards similar goals from across Colorado and beyond. And teams also had time to begin crafting action plans specific to each school in order to meet common goals, again, all aligned to strategic priority number 1. And we will find time this year to have the students share their work with the Board of Education and some of the work they've been doing related to this training. Want to also, we've been talking a lot about student data and district performance frameworks. We'll summarize some of that tonight, but do want to lift up a small but incredibly meaningful piece of our district performance data that was tucked quietly into reports this year, and that is student dropout rates. Reducing student dropout rates can only be achieved by building relationships, helping students and families access targeted resources, and helping students see that they belong, that they can do this, and that we have their back. It is deep, quiet, and long-term impactful work. It's led in our schools by family liaisons from the Family Resource Center, by school counselors, deans of culture, school administrators, from office teams and teachers who have built trusting relationships with students. And the teams work carefully with families and community members to wrap around students who keep them connected, engaged, and supported. Because our district performance framework doesn't show year to year, the board and probably community did not see that this year in every single category of student subgroups, we've reduced the number of students dropping out. So just wanted to lift that up and share congratulations, especially to our Roaring Fork School District students who are staying engaged and hanging in there, and to the teams of staff, families, and partners supporting them. It's important to remember that every student has a story, and often the numbers we use to measure our success don't reflect the very meaningful, transformative, and life-changing work that happens every day in Roaring Fork schools. And then also just want to celebrate that October 2nd is National Custodian Day. Our 42-member custodial team is a key part of achieving operations department's missions to create the conditions for students to thrive every day. Head custodians like Dean Black at CRES and Michael Stapleton at GSES have been part of their school's positive culture for years, interacting with students while keeping the school clean. Custodial directors Larissa Wanaka, and supervisor Diego Diaz Trejos set the highest standards for this team and provide the leadership necessary to clean over 1 million square feet every day. So happy National Custodian Day. That's all I got.
Thank you. The next business in order is the superintendent report, including RFSD strategic plan year 1 final report and PCG special education program review. Each board, oh, sorry.
Okay, we're going to start with a quick summary of our strategic plan year 1 and a final report of that. We talked a little bit about this during the work session. Want to just remind the board and the community that the 24-25 school year last year was the very first year of implementation for our new 5-year strategic plan. This plan builds on a decades-long foundation of community-based strategic planning in the Roaring Fork schools that was set first in 2014, and it levels up from there. The current plan strengthens accountability, transparency through tight initiatives and action plans. We began the work in 23-24 with a comprehensive external assessment of district strengths and growth areas. We conducted a robust root cause analysis around our challenges and growth areas, and we developed research-based priorities and initiatives to address those issues. We've been through 1 year of implementation and are continuing to improve. So just want to lift up a couple of the positive outcomes we saw in this first year. We launched a strategic plan data dashboard. We saw steady overall academic growth for our students, often in most cases outpacing the state averages for growth in most assessments. We improved school performance ratings for most schools and the district as a whole. And then we had a number of successful student, staff, family engagement initiatives, as evidenced by very high positive feedback reported on key family and staff surveys. There were a lot of successes this year, and the district also identified areas needing improvement. The implementation of some of our strategic initiatives last year was slowed by financial challenges and critical turnover on some leadership teams. This affected operational excellence and thriving team initiatives. Some of our rigorous instruction for all initiatives needed timeline adjustments to assure that we had alignment and clarity, and that we were moving slow to be able to move fast with some of the initiatives related to creating engaging and rigorous learning environments. And then despite strong student academic growth, as the board really dug into at our last meeting, we recognize that overall student achievement is still lagging and significant gaps remain between student subgroups. As we look ahead to 25-26 in year 2, a couple of things we're going to be really focusing on as a district. We've been talking about these. We're going to continue to implement our year 2 initiatives, which we've tightened up and adjusted. You know, we added attendance back in order to really strengthen that and re-engage with some of our attendance priorities. We're going to continue to implement that plan with fidelity, advancing our initiatives. We're going to continue to elevate, and even though it's one of our strategic priorities, we're going to keep talking about it, that we're elevating effective and rigorous instruction for all students. And we're going to continue to navigate financial challenges, which we anticipate while we keep our key priorities in place. How we're going to do this and build on our momentum is by continuing to cultivate a culture of data and working with a sense of urgency and efficacy, which is our firm belief that our students, staff, and leaders are the right people and they're capable of the challenging work ahead. We're building momentum in the right direction and delighted to submit this annual report. It's the first of at least another 4. So we'll shift over to our second topic.
Can I give a clicker? Yeah. Good evening. Thank you. I'm excited to be here with my colleague, Special Education Director Patrick McGinty, and myself to share a little bit about our special education program review. In 24-25 school year, we launched an RFP process to conduct this external comprehensive review for us on our special education programs, and we landed on Public Consulting Group based on their submitted artifacts and their examples of work with other districts in this realm. And PCG conducted this review between December 2024 and July 2025. This report was shared via staff and community newsletters in September, and we had several stakeholders that engaged in discussions about it as well. And we have scheduled dates for further engagement upcoming. But you can see here just the big categories themselves, and I'm not going to go into detail because we have shared off both the full report and the executive summary, as well as a detailed staff memo here. But you can see around document review, stakeholder input, observations, and quant data analysis. And what I'd say is that this was a really good opportunity to have an external group do such a thorough and comprehensive review of our programming, to get valuable feedback from key stakeholders and information in a way that they were able to share the information differently because it did not include RFSD staff within focus groups or even looking at survey data. And so, and then observing with an objective eye across many classrooms. The key things that are in the findings here were affirming of some of the things we feel are strengths and reinforcing some areas that we know we need to work on. I'm not going to go read through each slide, but you can see them here. And also just illuminated some new things like, not new things, but things for us that, such as the rigor of our SSN programs. And so what I wanted to actually have us focus on, and I'll pass this over, is just focusing on our next steps. I'm going to go back and forth a little bit here. These slides are a little bit out of order, but PCG did have 21 recommendations for us across these two slides, which when you look at this slide, there's a sort of recommendations roadmap, and one of those says 3 to 5 year timeline for full implementation for all of these recommendations. Our initial plan is actually on a 1 to 3 year timeline, actually 3 year timeline. And so today what we wanted to highlight were some of the next steps that we are focusing on for this year in response to the opportunities for improvement outlined by PCG.
Right. So these are kind of divided into the domains and some of what we learned. In the learning environment, we're really focusing on high leverage practices from the Council for Exceptional Children and really bringing that to life here in our district. We see that really embedded in a lot of our teacher prep programs. And so we're going to just reinforce and maybe introduce to some of our staff that weren't exposed to high leverage practices. So that's a huge process or program that we're working on right now through PD, through our ERWs. We're also talking about and working on high expectations. This is kind of a shared opportunity. So our principals are getting a lot of understanding on how they can manage programs and maintain high expectations at the school level. We hear our principals really hungry for opportunities so that they can manage their programs and understand what high expectations are. So we're giving quite a bit of PD through our leadership council meetings, 4 90-minute PDs this year to work on high expectations and some shared ownership of students with disabilities and the outcomes for those kiddos. Again, this kind of highlights again under leadership, not only at the principal level to make sure that our principals understand how they can manage the programs, answer questions, and really take responsibility at the school level, but also at the district level, how we're seeing special ed students with special needs embedded in our strategic initiatives, and that we're having that more shared approach to making sure that the students with outcomes, or that the outcomes for students are not just in the special ed department, that they're across all the domains and all the departments. Probably one of the biggest highlights that we're going to focus on this year is really leveraging our families and hearing very strongly from our families that they would like to have an influence and a seat at the table. We're going to create a special education advisory council through the Family Resource Center. And we've got a lot of great guidance on how to create that so that can sustain just beyond 1 or 2 years and have it be a part of our community and a part of our district. So we're really excited to get that started. hybrid this year. We're also using a new translation system, which I think can help get documents translated into native language very easily. It's a little bit of an AI system with our IEP software, which is really great. We should be able to get things translated in seconds versus months. So we're hoping that will give the materials in native language to families so that they can engage even more robustly at the IEP meetings. Our human capital, we're still looking at the high leverage practices and focusing on specially designed instruction. Also a little bit about, I call it the budget season, and really thinking about how we can have rigorous learning for all, and thinking about how we're allocating, how we're sharing our opportunities with principals so that we can get impact or input from our teachers and principals at the school level when we're coming into those allocations for the next school year. And again, you see there that we're really focusing on SPED programming and what leaders can do to help support and coach their staff and understanding what high quality instruction looks like. Oh, we already did that. I think one of the pieces here, this came from PCG, and Stacy highlighted this once already, but you know, they're saying a 3 to 5 year timeline for this full implementation. We're going to shoot for a 3-year timeline, and that we've kind of looked at these pieces, and we're going to provide some key performance indicators on these pieces, especially for year 1, so that we can track those a little bit more robustly and have those shared with our community.
Each board member will now have 2 minutes to share comments or ask questions. We will begin with Director Coolber.
Thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you for the updates. I was excited to see our annual update on the strategic plan. And as I mentioned in the work session, I think that's a great tool, an annual check-in for us to have and to begin to familiarize community with and utilize in a way that engages parents with accountability with this robust plan that we have in place. I don't have any questions on that one. A couple of things on the SPED report, which we also spent about an hour in work session on, just so the public knows we've already done a deep dive into this. And thinking about, we talked a lot about how the board wanted to see kind of an accountability timeline with those 21 points, and in thinking through it in the last however long it's been, half an hour. I think it would be great if we capped this year off with because you've identified all these immediate steps that you're working on right now that are in progress. So even if we were to cap the year off with like, this is where we are with the in progress ones, and this is our plan for the next 3 years, I think that might be a good way to ensure that the board maintains that touchstone of accountability, and have a check-in before we get into a more normal cadence next year. Because I feel like if it comes back next year without that, it might feel like it's been too long of a time, and the board might miss a significant chunk of what's been done. And of course, open to pushback. I was just thinking through if that would make sense to me as a board member. And then I had a question about if we are partnering at all with BOCES. I know they've had a shift in leadership, and I was talking to another regional board member about the desire to have a partnership with BOCES again around special education services, and I'm wondering if that's going anywhere.
And then if there's any.
So we separated and became our own AU from the BOCES quite a few years ago. And I would say that we are still super engaged as a Colorado River BOCES member. When topics of special education come up, they really only pertain to those districts that are in the BOCES. But I will say that, like, in terms of very high level strategy and concerns and questions, we are part of that conversation, because we're not, the challenges that we often face in terms of hiring and recruitment and costs specific to special education are not unique to us. And we share them with those schools and with the BOCES. And so, we're still at the table. We're still part of those conversations. We're not directly involved in any of the service delivery models. But we have been part of grappling with what it means to be doing high quality special education in this valley, where we are struggling to recruit and retain high quality special educators. So I would say from high level, at least from the BOCES board, the superintendent advisory council, we're super involved in those. I don't know if there's anything more other than, being good partners and good neighbors as our kids and families move up and down the district. It's certainly, I know that, our special education leadership works carefully with leadership in the BOCES and our other schools, but anything you want to add?
I mean, just historically, the BOCES was providing our speech pathology related providers and things like that. And we moved away from that even before I got here. So we've had those folks under our own umbrella for a long time. And so, so when we left most recently, we had audiology, teacher of the visually impaired, and some very unique providers that were provided by the BOCES. They had a hard time providing those in the last couple of years. So we are fortunate enough to have hired those folks out on our own. And so that's kind of the luxury of the BOCES. We definitely partner with them with the Yampa School and the Rebound program. And so we're deeply involved with them in that. And they do provide that piece of our continuum for our special ed programming.
Great, thank you.
Director Dupree.
Appreciate the deep dive and work session. Thank you for that. Just going to bring forward, I think, the things that I got from that conversation that I think are important, and that was supporting the staff as they work towards creating more continuity and expectations for IEP programs and rigor in all the buildings throughout the district. And then also making sure that the interface piece with parents is as accessible, transparent, and again, consistent as possible, with an emphasis on translation services for those families who already would have trouble accessing regular day-to-day activities at the school sometimes because of language barriers. And then, I mean, even for me, the mountain of paperwork involved sometimes in having a kid receiving services, it's intimidating. And so just really prioritizing the empathy with folks on the outside, not only of the language, but of the system. As we think about where our resources are going to go in such a short time, because it's a big goal in 1 to 3 years, even with just the emphasis on safety and security and accessibility for those families. So again, appreciate the work you're doing and the work from the outside consultant. I think that was a critical piece of this as well.
Okay, I just want to echo some of the points from my colleague. I think one thing I want to make is that team will be getting back to us with some survey questions that we had, to which the board will be receiving a follow-up on that. And then also just the conversation, I agree with Director Kohlenberg of having that strategic plan like model for the board to have, you know, who owns the recommendation, and what department and the timeline on when that will be reached. And I really appreciate the commitment from this team to work towards a 1 to 3 year model, really working with that urgency that was expressed to us. I think that's important. And I appreciate that commitment from our team of saying, like, we really see the urgency and we want to commit to this faster. So thank you for that. And then on the strategic plan, again, I appreciate the letter. I think it was important to at least be able to put into words what we're hoping the community or some of our stakeholders will read from that. I would love to maybe in the future have a conversation as a board of like what we hope our community sees or how it engages with the strategic plan, because I do think there is an opportunity here for us to be really intentional with what, you know, a kindergarten mom learns about how to engage now with the strategic plan so that 3 years out she knows what we're working on. And so I think that would be really important for us to maybe even during CASB see if there's another school district that maybe has something we could engage with. You know, sometimes school boards like to carry the strategic plan. But I think that would be a helpful conversation for us to have moving forward. Thank you, team. Directors, we have 5 minutes for all the discussion. Does anyone have any follow-up questions?
It feels like we're moving quickly, but also because so much of what was covered in the strategic plan was included in that deep dive of data that we did in the previous session as well. So I think the board's super comfortable with it, just for those of you who are wondering why we might have moved quickly through that tonight.
Thank you, team.
Thank you for all the work on this.
At this time, we welcome members of the public to sign up to address the board. We have 3 speakers sign up tonight. The board allows 45 minutes for public comment. To respect the time of all who are present, speakers are to limit their remarks to 3 minutes or less. Reminder to all speakers to uphold our procedures for public comment. We ask you to be thoughtful and constructive with your comments, and thank you in advance during your feedback. Members of the public who wish to share their views with the board may always do so in writing at any time. For this evening's public comment, we received 0 written comments. Our first speaker tonight is Alex Sanchez.
Good evening, members of the board, staff, and community. As you know, I'm Alex Sanchez. I'm the president and CEO of Voces Unidas. I'm also a proud graduate of all 3 schools in Basalt. I'm here to speak about our first report card for the Roaring Fork School District. First, I want to recognize the dedicated educators, staff, and families who show up every day for students. We know this district has people who care deeply about children and work on their behalf. What I'm about to share is not a measure of effort or people. It is an evaluation of the effectiveness of strategies, systems, and outcomes of this district. We're also not evaluating how the district serves white students. For many white families, their experiences and student outcomes may be exceptional, and that is fine. But that is not the reality for Latino students, who now make up more than half of the student population. We must be honest about this fact. Today, Voces Unidas released our first accountability report card for the Roaring Fork School District. The overall grade is a D-. Here's why. Quality of education. Latino students remain nearly 40 points behind white peers in ELA, math, and science, among the widest gaps in Colorado. Human capital. Leadership at both the school and district level does not reflect the student population. Parent power. Latino parents are consulted but excluded from real decisions with no intentional investments in preparing them for leadership roles. On governance and leadership, for more than 15 years, this district has adopted plans and aspirational policies, yet without enforcement or accountability, the gaps persist decade after decade. The Roaring Fork School District has never been held accountable for its results. From now on, progress must be measured by outcomes, not promises or good intentions. Our community refuses to accept the status quo. This D- is a call to action. If you choose to make changes, if you choose urgency and accountability, together we can finally deliver the high quality education that every child in this district deserves. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Maya David Alvarez.
¿Y quién me va a ayudar a traducir?
Okay.
Para cada uno de los párrafos, si tú me ayudas. Sí. Buenas noches, mi nombre es María Judith Álvarez y soy madre de un niño que está en la escuela de high school y yo trabajo aquí en la comunidad en nutrición y también en salud y
Good evening. My name is Maria Judith Alvarez. I am the mother of a child in high school, and I work in the community as a health nutritionist.
y estoy aquí porque creo firmemente que ningún niño debería de pasar hambre en la escuela.
And I am here because I believe no child should be hunger at school.
Hoy en Colorado, 2 de 5 familias tienen dificultades para poner comida en sus mesas. Y
Today in Colorado, at least 2 out of 5 families have a hard time to bring food to the table.
para muchos estudiantes, la comida, el almuerzo que tienen, a veces es la única comida nutritiva que tienen durante todo el día.
And for many students, the school lunch is the only nutritious food they have throughout the day.
Y si este programa termina y los papás van a tener que volver a calificar para tener acceso a este programa en las escuelas, probablemente muchos niños van a estar preocupados.
If we take away this program, there's probably a lot of kids that's going to have difficulty having this meal a day.
Y siempre he pensado que los niños ya tienen mucho por qué preocuparse de las tareas y las actividades que tienen que hacer para preocuparse por esto.
I think kids are already worry about the homework and school activities they have to do to add this on top of it.
Así que estoy aquí para hablar con ustedes que tal vez ya saben de las dos proposiciones que va a haber en noviembre, la LL y MM.
So I am here, as you probably know, about the propositions LL and MM. That it's for the November election.
La LL es para poder usar los fondos que ya se recaudaron en los años pasados, en el 2022 que pasó la propuesta.
The LL is to keep the funds that were approved in 2022 when this proposition was approved.
Y MM realmente quiere hacer que sea saludable y recaudar más fondos.
And MM, which is intended to get more funds and to ensure that the program is healthy.
Porque se quiere que se compre productos locales, que se pague más a personas en la escuela.
This will require that we get local products and that the school staff gets paid more.
Bueno, este programa es increíble, ayuda ya a más de 600 niños en Colorado de tener comida cada año.
It's an incredible program. It already helps more than 600 kids in Colorado.
Y todo esto es pagado por personas que ganan más de 300,000 al año, así que no
And
afecta a
all
las
of this
familias.
we pay for people that make more than 300,000 a year, so it wouldn't affect low-income families.
Así que estoy aquí para pedir su apoyo,
So I am here
este,
to ask for your support.
que apoyen estas dos proposiciones.
You support this.
Yasmín ha trabajado
proposition.
fuertemente conmigo en el 2022 para pasar la
Jasmine
propuesta
worked a lot
yendo
in
al Capitolio.
2022, going to the Capitol.
Así que, por eso estoy aquí. Yo creo que los niños no deberían
That's why I'm here, 'cause I
preocuparse
don't
por
feel
la
kids
comida
should worry
que reciben en
about
su
what they
escuela.
receive in their school.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Escuchar.
Our next speaker is Jonathan Shaw.
Hi, good evening, board and district leaders. My name is John Shaw, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about my experience moving to the Roaring Fork Valley and becoming a parent of students in the school district and the husband of a woman who's a first grade teacher at Glenwood Springs Elementary School. Prior to being here, we were in Greeley, Colorado, where I worked in the University of Northern Colorado in the School of Teacher Education, coordinating graduate programmings for about 15 years. And so I think I've had a fair share of insights on education and was an elementary school teacher in Denver Public for about 7 years. As we've arrived at the Roaring Fork Valley about 3 years ago, I just want to say I feel like I've landed in my dream district. It's been a wonderful opportunity for us to learn, grow, and be part of the community. And I see how hard all of our educators are working in the area. Getting a chance to have my, at the time, second and fifth graders be submerged in bilingual immersion at Riverview Elementary School with Principal Adam Volek, again, was something beyond any thoughts that I would have had for our family as we made a transition to this beautiful place. We were supported. We were submerged in great learning and really made part of the community, which we really appreciated. Simultaneously, my wife transitioned from the Weld 6 district online teaching to Glenwood Springs Elementary, and it's been a fantastic experience for her. She's learned a ton. She loves being part of the community and working with the students up and down the area from Rifle up into Glenwood Springs. So just wanted to take a few moments while I was here to say thank you all for your work. We appreciate all you're doing.
Next business in order is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes routine personnel minutes from our previous board meeting and policies JRA/JRC and BBA. Directors, are there any items that you would like to pull off the consent agenda for a separate discussion and vote? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
We call for the vote.
Aye.
Director Kuhlenberg,
Aye.
Director Ramirez.
The next business in order is presentation from CMC Matt Ineshi, PhD President of Colorado Mountain College, regarding the ballot initiative 7C.
If I can interject for just a second. While Matt's getting settled, we have a couple of speakers tonight who are here because there are so many ballot initiatives that are related to education. So we wanted to make sure that the board is aware of these initiatives, and in some cases that the board is hearing from staff a recommendation to consider resolutions in support of some of these. So the next series of speakers are all really focused on education-related ballot initiatives. So thanks to all those folks who are here.
Thanks for that, Madam Superintendent and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to approach you. I believe this was in your packet, and I was told we have 3 minutes, and this will take more than 3 minutes to go through that. So I'm going to stick to, I'll just ask, well, maybe not. What's that? It's coming our way. That's okay. Thank you. Let me, you know our story a little bit. Let me come back to, although let me show you this in case you didn't know that automotive picture right there is yours. That's your automotive program. Okay. So what's happening right now? I'll come back to these if you wish here in just a minute, but just let me get to the question. So here's the question. So we are here potentially to seek your endorsement if that's something that the board chooses to do. We understand if you're not able to do that, recognizing that my board typically is in a similar situation and doesn't take positions within their own tax district. And also I'm joined by Steve Skadron, who's the vice president and campus dean of our Aspen and Carbondale campuses. But earlier this year, our board has decided to go to the ballot. This is not a new question. It's actually the same question that was asked effectively in 2018. So in 2018, we approached the CMC tax district, which includes a very, very large area. So it's 11 school districts covering all or some of 7 different counties across the mountain region. And at that time, what we had asked for was the ability to simply float our mill levy to correct for adjustments that were being made by Gallagher in state calculation that was negatively impacting the college. That measure passed overwhelmingly. It passed 71%. So in our district, and so we were working within that comfortably for the last several years. In fact, over the last 2 tax cycles, we were the largest tax district in the whole state of Colorado to return or refund taxes. We refunded nearly $50 million back to the taxpayers across our district. Unfortunately, when we lowered our mill levy to create the refund, the General Assembly decided that they were going to create a new property tax in the middle of that. And part of that new property tax policy caps property taxes at the 2023 level, which was one of our refund years. And so we had given back $25 million in that year. It was great. The result now is that the new ceiling for us is actually about a full mill below our approved mill levy by our district. So what we're doing here with this question, 7C, and you'll see that it says without imposing any new tax and without exceeding the limit approved by voters in 2018, shall Colorado Mountain College be able to waive the 5.25 property tax limit, which is the new limit that they've imposed through the legislation passed through the special session last year for investments for 10 years for investments in expanded skilled trades, training nurses, firefighters, and first responders, and housing solutions for local talent. Just a moment about those reasons why we prioritize those. A big part of that is concurrent enrollment. So CMC today, 42% of our enrolled students, we have 14,000 enrolled students, 42% of them are concurrent enrollment students throughout all of the districts that we work with. Many of those students are enrolled in skilled trades types of programming, which is terrific. The programming we do here in the Roaring Fork School District, including the automotive program, are terrific. They're full with wait lists, which is exactly what we want. One of the challenges, however, is if they graduate and they've not yet finished a certificate or an associate's degree, they often can't come back because the facilities that we work with are often in high schools. And so one of our goals is to expand opportunities for skilled trades, not only so that those high school students can complete their credentials, many of them do, some don't, but also so we can train the local adult workforce in those same skills. We can do it in certain areas. We can't do it in every area. The other thing I'll just mention about skilled trades, you know, the wages that are involved in these. The other challenge for us with these is, as anybody who does skilled trades, is that these are not inexpensive opportunities. They're high cost programs. They require specialized facilities and more specialized faculty, which are harder and harder to come by. Because they too are enjoying very high wages as a result of their skills. And so part of what this measure would allow us to do is retain the kind of talent and the kinds of program capacity to serve what our communities actually need. Let me finish with one point, and then we'll open it up to anything you would like to ask us. The last point would be more about seeking solutions for our local, it says local talent here, but CMC, over 90% of our graduates are local students. We try to, our purpose is to educate and train and retain people in good jobs in these communities. And so a lot of what we're doing is trying to complement all the things that you're doing in the school district to to train people for good jobs, to stay here, and to give them the opportunities to flourish once they graduate. Unfortunately, we've seen that our male population, like many colleges like ours, we're not unique, but the male population of students going into college has actually been declining over the last several years. And it's across every demographic. This is not, there's no the way to just pull it out and say it's one group. It's across the board. And yet skilled trades is not one of those areas. We see that we have a tremendous amount of interest among our young men in these kinds of programs, as well as in first responder, firefighting, and other types of programs that we train, often with you. And so our goal here is to try to both adapt to the reality of what we're seeing in our marketplace, and also make sure that that the instruction that we offer meets the needs of the communities here. So I'll stop there. There's no fiscal impact. The handout you have in front of you is actually the official Tabor notice. There is no budget table because there is no fiscal impact. This is a request for authority for the Colorado Mountain College Board to continue to use the mill levy that was approved in 2018, and that's it.
Thank you so much. I have this new access as chair that throws me out of the agenda every single time. So I need to go right back to my agenda. We will now give each board member 2 minutes to ask any questions or comments. Director Kuhlenberg.
A point of clarification either for staff or chair. This isn't on our agenda as an action item this evening, so I'm assuming we're just hearing this tonight and having time as a board to determine if we want to take action or take a stance, and then we will bring it back if we decide to do that. Okay. Okay. Thank you for the presentation. This is super helpful, and we're very grateful for our partnership with CMC and the work that you all do with our students and our communities. I think we all have touch points with it and see the real impact that it has. Can you explain a little more? I know we flew through some of the slides, but finance is so complicated for so many, and it's difficult for people to understand the way that mills are assessed. And so when you're saying this is not a new tax, can you explain that a little more so that the general public can understand a little better what you're saying?
Yeah. Can we speak freely, Madam Chair? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a great question. So in 2018, the Colorado Mountain College Board requested the authority again to float its mill levy to quote correct for any losses that were happening because of the Gallagher formula. That resulted in just an adjustment in the mill levy amount. When the property valuations increased dramatically in 2020 and 2021, as we all saw and paid for, our board chose to lower its mill levy from the amount that had been approved, which is 4.24. So just to use real numbers, 4.24 is the official mill levy that's been approved by our district. We only needed 3 mills in that year because of the increase in property values. We only needed 3 mills to cover the budget for what we had in that year. So my board chose to reduce the mills from 4.24 to 3. And then the next year, there was a little bit of changes in the valuation, and the mill levy went from 3 to 3.24. So if you see there's about a single mil difference, that may not sound like a lot to a typical household. It's $20, $30 kind of, math. It depends on the valuation of the home, of course. Across our district, that number could be as much as say $20 million, $25 million. And so as we think about the investments for, say, skilled trades facilities or expanding fire science, which are things that we're looking at, those require like an initial infusion of capital. We can do debt, but for a small college like us, carrying a lot of debt is definitely a headwind that we would prefer to avoid if we already have the authority given by our taxpayers to sort of work within that 4.24 amount.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's helpful.
Thank you. Director DeFreeze?
Yes, thank you for your time tonight. I just wanted to say I'm in full support of us drafting a resolution. I think my biggest reasoning behind that is that some of our priorities identified within our strategic plan directly have to do with workforce development from students who are from our district and from diverse backgrounds. And I know that the work that CMC does is what we're relying on to accomplish that. And so I think there's a very clear overlap in our priorities to support this work that you're doing, and especially focused on skilled trades and the future of mountain towns. Rural communities are getting hit hard with the shifts at school budget formulas at the state level, and we just want to make sure that we are keeping the local support that we can. And I just am already voicing, as our board finds time to do it, I am personally going to try to get that resolution in front of us sooner rather than later.
So thanks for that. And I'm glad you brought up the school finance questions. I used to have to write the School Finance Act once upon a time, so I
Sorry.
recognize how complicated and challenging, and next year is going to be tough. And you know that. One of the things I would just encourage maybe you, and even as you talk about it, to your neighbors, and I live in Basalt, by the way, so I'm one of your neighbors in the area for many of you. We receive the funding for between tuition, we get a little bit of state funding, and then we get our local property taxes. We put that into our faculty and our staff and our equipment that your districts get to use. On a per student basis, and this is not exactly equivalent, I know it gets a little wonky, but just kind of follow the logic. We spend per student approximately, call it $17,000 to $18,000 a year per student here. We charge you, if you were to have a full-time student come to my college, we would charge the equivalent of about $3,000. So we spend 5 times as much money on your students than you do. And so as you think about the budget constraints that you're facing, I hope that you will continue to look to CMC for us to try to help fill some of those opportunities so that we can help supplement or supplant some of the losses in other areas, because those are things that we can do at a very discounted rate so that we can help you still achieve the goals that you have in ways that, obviously it's going to be mostly at the secondary level, but obviously ways that we can help you approach those budget concerns and still have a high quality education for all students.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you guys both. I actually don't know if you wanted to.
Steve, anything to add?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
We appreciate being a partner, CMC. We appreciate not just, the automotive department that we just collaborated on, but all of the work that's yet to come. And so we appreciate so much you taking the time today to share this with our team. And we will have further conversations as a board to make that decision. But we more than anything want to express our gratitude and appreciation for CMC as a partner, because it has made a difference, as you know, for our community, our valley, but especially for our students.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. Thanks.
Thank you.
guys.
Chair, may I make a motion? I make a motion to amend our agenda so that item 9.1 is no longer an action item, but a discussion item, seeing as we don't have a quorum for voting here tonight, since you're personally invested in the matter.
Yes, I second that motion.
I am just really comfortable for this. Yeah. Jonathan, can we call for a vote for that, please?
On the table is a motion to amend item 9.1 from an action item to a discussion item only, and we'll move the action to next board meeting.
Got it. Director DeFreitas,
Aye.
Director Kuhlenberg,
Aye.
Director Ramirez.
So I want to go ahead and state really quick, the shift that we just did as a board. I have to abstain from voting on the next item, and so it is really important for us to do things right. And so we are going to wait for the rest of the board to take action on the following item at next meeting, which actually, if we as a board have further discussion and would like to add the CNC initiative to that meeting, that could go on a consent agenda. But I want to apologize for this. We did not flag it up until this moment. But thank you, and thank you to our team for being willing to be flexible tonight. Okay, our next business in order. I'm sorry. I gotta go. The discussion for ballot initiative 7A with Rob Peck.
Hi, let me just get my computer open. Feels like I'm back for a visit about every year. It's great to be back in this room on a less frequent basis than I used to be. Thank you for taking some time in your agenda to hear about ballot initiative 7A. I just want to make sure I understood that you can't vote tonight because President Ramirez has a conflict of interest. So I'm still going to ask you to endorse and pass the resolution, and then you'll do that later if you so choose. I'm really asking three things of the board. First is that you approve a resolution endorsing 7A. Second, that you approve distribution of educational materials which cite pros and cons that are allowable within the school district to educate families about this important issue for their children. And third, that you consider individual endorsements. And I invite the staff as well to consider endorsing this as educators and concerned people in the community about our children. Please go to the next slide. So Roaring Fork Schools was a charter member of the CC Coalition, the Confluence Early Childhood Education Coalition, which started to coalesce in 2016 and formalized in 2017. The notion was early childhood providers, all the school districts from Parachute to Aspen, and a lot of other interested nonprofits and foundations were concerned about the access to affordable childcare and education for children in the region. And so we started working on a way to provide access to kids and families for early childcare and education. And ultimately found the path to 7A, which I want to just give you a little background on tonight. I feel like I'm giving you information you already know, but I think it's worth emphasizing, especially for any listeners, that with all due respect to my colleagues from CMC, early childhood is much more important. Those first 5 years are the most crucial developmental years when 90% of brain development happens for all of us. As a former high school educator, if I'd really known, I would have been an early childhood educator, probably from the outset. But nonetheless, the benefits include that kids who have access to high quality preschool are better prepared for kindergarten. They read earlier, they live healthier lives, they have better development skill, they have better developed social skills, meaning like self-management, self-regulation, establishing constructive relationships, establishing stronger family relationships. They're more likely to graduate from high school and college. Over the course of their lifetimes, they earn higher wages, and they're less likely to participate in the justice system. So the benefits are innumerable. Next slide. Oh, I can do this, can't I? Or we don't know. Is that okay if I just ask you to do it? Thanks. So the problem is that in our region, we are short on spots. There are only about 44% of the spots needed for for kids age 0 to 5 for early care and education. And those that are available are extremely expensive. A family with 2 kids in preschool is spending about 35% of their income on tuition. Average tuition from Aspen to Parachute is in the $17,000 or $18,000 range. So if you imagine having 2 children, you're paying like a college tuition for your kids to be in preschool. The economic impacts we know are, one more back, please, Jonathan. I think the next one is economic, is it not? Oh, okay. I have a different slide. I'll just skip that one. But anyway, economic impacts are phenomenal. One thing that we think we know from Nobel laureate economist James Heckman is that the return on investment for early childhood is probably 13% per year, meaning that interest accrues or benefits accrue over the course of the lifetime, so that a dollar spent on early childhood has a return of about $7 or $8. And those are in savings for things like special education, remedial education, criminal justice system, and so forth. Having decided every year on a school calendar, you know how interdependent our region is. And whenever you try to make a calendar that just works for Roaring Fork, you run into our neighbors where many of our teachers live, or some of our families have kids in 2 schools. Well, that's exactly the same for early childhood, as so many families maybe live in Western Garfield, work in Roaring Fork, or live here and work in Aspen. And sometimes they enroll their kids closer to home. Sometimes they transport their kids to where they work. And so there was no way for us to envision a quality network of early childhood that didn't really stretch from Aspen all the way to Parachute. So that's part of our design here. Again, I feel like you already know this. Next slide, please. So what we had to do to create this regional approach is actually pass a law in 2019. Our local Senator Bob Rankin ran it before the Senate, and then it was approved in the House, that allows us to create a special taxing district for early childhood. This is a first of its kind. This would be the first of its kind in the state of Colorado, but it runs very similarly to a school district. That is, it's governed by a board who has oversight over budget and staff and strategic direction and so forth. And as I mentioned, the region would be, for this special district, Aspen to Parachute, pretty much the Garfield 16, RE2, Roaring Fork, and Aspen School District footprints. Next slide, please. So this would be a funding stream, not a direct program. What we don't need is more providers, or maybe we do need more providers, but we don't need another next layer of bureaucracy. So the notion here is to keep it lean and use this as a funding stream for really 3 purposes. First, and most importantly, is tuition subsidies or tuition assistance to families. This is where we hope over time the bulk of the funding would go. To make childcare more affordable for families. But in order to do that, we have to invest in capacity because there's such a shortage, depending on the region, depending on the area within this broader region. There might need to be different kinds of investments, either directly in teacher salaries or in some startup investments or expansion investments to help providers expand. But then also there's a confusing environment of funding streams. The universal preschool is not really universal. It's 15 hours typically for 4-year-olds. There's called a preschool program, which is passed through school districts. There's the Aspen has a funding source. And our notion is that we help parents identify and navigate these different providers and the different funding streams and layer them so that they're eligible for whatever they can get. And then, so to do that, we want to set up a portal that allows parents to be better educated about the funding opportunities and the enrollment opportunities available. We've set a target of no more than 5% going to administration and evaluation. Evaluation is super expensive. Administration is really just staff and a little bit of back office support, but we would like to see 95% of the funding going into these other 3 areas. So what we're asking of our taxpayers is to approve a 0.25% sales tax Then the district would be run by a 5-member board, structured so that there are 5 director districts. You all have tinkered with director districts within the Roaring Fork schools, so try to keep them balanced and represented, like coherent around like municipal boundaries and things like that. So, and then it'll be up to the board moving forward to make adjustments over time to make sure they stay balanced and that there's some integrity to the districts. One of the things different from the school district is that we set it up so that the director would be elected only by the electors who reside in the same district. And that was partly to protect this notion of voice in the process, to make sure that everybody felt they had ownership and there was no region that had more preference or more say in how the district was governed. So I think that's pretty much my summary. And again, I'm asking for an endorsement or a resolution endorsing 7A from the board, which I understand you can't do tonight, for your individual endorsements, which you certainly can do at any time. And then to distribute educational materials to the families and staff in the school district.
Thank you. We'll now have 2 minutes discussion for each board member and 5 minutes of open discussion. I am going to recuse myself from discussion. I'm just letting my colleagues know. I think it's important for us, for the school district, to maintain as much transparency on why we do some of the things we do. Because of my dual role, possibility of a dual role with this district, I want to make sure that it's important that the rest of my colleagues are here for a vote on this matter.
Do you want to explicitly explain why you're recusing? Because I don't think you've made it clear yet that you're on the ballot.
So I want to be clear that I am abstaining from a vote and recusing myself from the position. Director Campbell?
Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight and for taking the time to present to our board and boards and municipalities up and down the valley. I'm a full supporter of this initiative. I have publicly endorsed already. I have provided quotes. I have been recorded. I am doing outreach to preschools and centers currently, so that director voice is included. I have a couple of, I think that this could be an amazing opportunity for our valley. I think that if done right, that this will impact kids in the innumerable and immeasurable ways that you described. I was a lawyer who shifted careers to go into early childhood because I understand deeply the impact that early childhood has. And also because I knew that I wanted multiple kids and I knew how expensive it was to have children in childcare. And so instead of doing that, I bought a childcare center and ran one to have my kids in it, which is not accessible to everyone, obviously. It's not a route that everyone can take. Everyone doesn't have that director certificate in their back pocket. But so just to say, I've already publicly endorsed this campaign. I do have, a lot of questions about it. I want to ensure that there is director voice at the table if this were to pass. And I think that it's important that everyone in the early childhood community remember that. One of the things that I consistently fight for is that the primarily women who are in our classrooms and in our centers have voice in these decisions, because I think so often they are excluded from the table. And I consistently hear that from them directly and the frustration that comes with that. So I want to say that very publicly, that I think that that is a necessary piece. I think that there have been some missteps and they haven't been included and brought along all the way. And I think that right now is a critical time to continue to bring them along, which is why I am volunteering and helping to do that work and ensure that outreach is done to every center director, because these are the people that are on the ground and that can really tell us what they need in terms of staffing, what their families need. So I could go on about this all night, but I'll leave it at that.
Sure. I just had a couple questions. In transparency, I've also been participating in supporting this program in the background. I'm doing some local outreach. Big fan. My personal story is I was a teacher and then I had 3 kids and I had to step away from the classroom because I would have had to pay for the privilege of leaving my house to continue my professional work in the classroom. And it was not ever what I thought I would do. It's obviously led me on a different path, but it was a really hard decision and I do miss that sometimes. All that to say, I am extremely proud of our region for being a state leader in finding this type of solution. And my questions are just so that I can better communicate and that those listening might understand. Can you explain just real quick the timeline and election process for directors? And is that on the ballot at the same time?
There'll be, as a voter, you'll see two questions. One is, shall there be a tax and the formation of a special district? And that's combined in one question. And then the second is you'll have an opportunity to vote on the director for your district. And depending on your district, like I know District 3, which is Carbondale, there's only a single candidate, so that person's running unopposed. And I think that's true of District 5, which is Aspen region, but the others have 2 or 3 people running. So you'll be able to vote on that person within your district.
Okay, good to know. And then I'm interested in the approach to regional equity for distribution of these funds. You had those different categories and how the money is going to be distributed. And I mean, just to be candid, we all understand that Aspen carries an enormous weight when it comes to property taxes within this identified region. And so I'm wondering how you all have approached making sure that those funds are, or just your thoughts on that in general.
Well, I can share some thoughts, but the challenge is that this will be up to the board. And so to Director Kullenberg's point, it's very important that the board be elected who is really attending to equity. And there's what's called a service plan, which is essentially the blueprint, which we submitted to get county commissioner approval and to give better guidance to the board and to the voters about what this thing would look like. And the concept, there's nowhere in the concept that says money in equals money out. So it's about, where is the need the greatest? But what has not been established, for example, is what will be the fees, the subsidy rate or the, adjustments for, based on income and things like that. And that'll be up to the board to determine. I have my own strong opinions that this should be heavily weighted towards need. And that the majority of the funding should just go to tuition subsidies and let families, determine what's best for their children. But again, that's going to be the board's decision making out of the gate.
Okay, that's good to know. And on that note, you said you had a blueprint for counties. Which counties I know Garfield has approved the
In order to create a special district, we needed to get approval from all 3 counties commissioners. And so that's what they approved is the service plan. And so it was actually unanimous for all 3, for Garfield, Eagle, and Pitkin County commissioners in their vote, which then allowed us to put it on the ballot.
And have you all approached local city councils and towns about this already?
Yes, we talked to Carbondale last night, in fact, and they have endorsed. We've met with Glenwood. I personally know the ones I met with. I'm not sure where we are in terms of the lineup, but we're trying to meet with all 7 or 8 municipalities during this time window right now that we're in.
Excellent. Yeah, I appreciate that. And just echoing Director Kullenberg's discussion and point about including those voices most impacted. I really appreciated that and the work you're doing for that.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize, I'm working as a volunteer to get this thing passed, and then it's going to have a life of its own.
Yeah.
I think the merits are self-evident. As an educator, I can't think of a better thing to be spending my time on. I have no influence other than my voice in seeing how this thing eventuates. But I can just say personally, I think it's worth it. And there's going to be the need for the community to stay vigilant and involved to make sure that it's responsive to not just providers, but families.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
We have 5 minutes for open discussion. If anybody would like to add any comments to that?
The only thing that I would do is echo the point you just made, that it's going to be incredibly important for community to be involved. This is going to be reliant on board members stepping up and everyone keeping their eye on the ball and moving it forward. So it's an exciting prospect, and thank you for all your work getting it here.
So much for your time.
Thank you. So just for my clarification, it's going to be on the next agenda. Will you think it'll be a consent agenda item, or do you think you'll put it up? That's what you'll start with, you think, or you don't know yet?
think the board will let you know. Oh, superintendent will let you know. I'm not sure if we want to add it to the consent agenda with the other item. I think we will hopefully let you know by tomorrow.
Do you feel comfortable giving guidance to staff tonight about educating your community, which doesn't normally take board action, but I felt uncomfortable just asking staff to educate the community about something that the board wasn't leaning positively toward.
Maybe Superintendent, could you clarify which policy we're working under as we do that, if we were to give you direction?
We're pretty limited in what we, as school district staff, what we can share in terms of campaign information. We can certainly share neutral information about ballot initiatives that impact education, which we will do. But using our normal channels, we can certainly share the kinds of information we typically do, which is where the board lies in support of specific ballot initiatives, which is our intent once the board does take action. So that is, we have been kind of withholding much information with our community about this, waiting for board action because it'll shift how we talk about the initiative. Does that make sense?
But if it doesn't require official board action, I mean, can we find a consensus conversation so we don't have to wait? I know these issues and outreach is super critical.
Yeah,
That's right.
I'm sorry, I want to be sure we stay on track to the agenda too. So I think what I'm understanding is individually as board members, we're able to lend support, share with community, do volunteer outreach, all of that. I think out of preference for our policies and procedures, we're gonna wait for a board vote on this issue before we send something out to our district staff community stating that we are supporting this. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I mean,
Question is the other
Could
material.
I just give you guys, because I just
Materials.
reviewed your board policy, so maybe it's fresh for me. And I put a paragraph in the memo that your board policy KHC, which regulates what non-curricular materials can be distributed. They need to be of interest. They need to align with or support the district's mission, and they need to be of high interest to staff, students, and parents. And so clearly this, in my reading, is both aligned with the mission, the educational mission, and is of high interest to students, staff, and parents. And then, of course, it has to be, it can't be like vote yes or something like that. And so I've given you all one that our legal counsel said works as a neutral representation that presents both pros and cons. You may want to review it internally and not just take our word for it, but there's actually a sample brochure that could be printed two-sided English and Spanish already there for you.
And I think in the interest of timing, that would certainly put something in the board update. If anyone is opposed, they could reach out. If not, I'm comfortable with us moving forward with sharing the neutral documentation.
Okay. The next business in order is the approval of resolutions of support for propositions LL and MM. And sorry, I wanted to see who.
Oh, we've got more.
Yeah, we have a presentation by that. Sorry, Ben. I was looking for your name here.
Hi. You ready for me?
Yeah,
Okay,
sorry.
got a little lost in the transition there. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you. We have Erica Cervantes from Hunger Free Colorado on Zoom to share a similar kind of overview of propositions LL and MM, which are related to the Healthy School Meals for All program. And I think Jonathan's going to share his screen for the slides. And so Erica, we'll just kind of flip through the slides on our end. I think we figured out that might be easier. But I'll hand it off to you for a brief presentation, and there is a resolution if the board is inclined to pass one.
Ben, I'm sorry, I need to clarify. Do we need to do the motion before?
Mhm.
Okay. So can I have a motion to approve the resolution in support of propositions LL and MM?
I move that the board approve the resolution of support of propositions LL and MM as presented.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, Erica, I'll just hand it off to you.
Thank you so much, folks. Can everybody hear me?
Yep, sounds great.
Okay, great. Well, first off, just thank you so much for the time and attention to this topic tonight. I'm going to go through these slides relatively quickly. We're going to go over some background and then a little bit of what to expect for the 2025-2026 school year, and then really what to expect beyond that. This set of slides is an informational and educational set of slides. So for some background, as you all may remember, back in 2022, Colorado was the third state to pass an initiative that offered free school meals for all public school students. And in the first year, we had 100% of all eligible districts opt in to participate into the program. And really the first phase of the program was to provide free school lunches for every student in all of those districts that opted in. And so with that first phase, we saw an immense increase of participation with 30% in breakfast and lunch, and really families being able to save money with about $1,300 per child just in meal costs. So some more of the facts. Because of the Healthy School Meals for All program, we've been able to provide 600,000 free nutritious meals to public students in Colorado every day. And as I mentioned, in the first year, there was an immense increase in participation from students using the program now that the food was free. I think it's also important to note that hunger has been a prevalent issue in our communities in Colorado and often impacts rural communities at, disproportionate rates. Next slide. And as you all may know, our state budget has been in a challenging place the last few years, but in combination with the amount of students participating on the school lunch program, with that increase and the cost of food and inflation, really we were looking at a higher cost for the program than was originally estimated. And so that essentially made us have to go pursue potential revenue solutions. So earlier last year, we were able to essentially refer propositions LL and MM to the ballot for this November. And they each do something differently. So because of TABOR, or the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, here in Colorado, it's a specific economic system that allows us to have to go back to voters and just ask for their permission on how funds related to taxing individuals in our state are used. Because of that, we do have to ask voters if we can retain the funds that the program has generated so far, or if those funds are refunded to the households that are making over $300,000 or more. And I just mentioned that because that's the way the program is funded. It puts a limit on tax deductibles for households earning over $300,000. And then Proposition MM, next slide, please, is really asking to raise the additional funding needed to ensure that we don't just have free school lunch for students, but that we are actually moving towards more from scratch, locally sourced options with boosts in compensation for the workers that are cooking these meals. And so basically, Prop MM is using the same funding mechanism as Prop FF to raise additional funds that once again are only imposed on households that make $300,000 or more. We really want to emphasize that because we know that many people in Colorado are expectant of a TABOR check sometimes, and we just want to emphasize that for these propositions, this refund would only be applicable to these households that make over $300,000. Households that are below that total earnings for the year are not impacted whatsoever by the funding mechanism of the program. And then lastly, Prop MM is also allowing for some of the overflow funding that is being raised through the Healthy School Meals for All program to be given to some of the SNAP cuts that our state has experienced because of some of the federal budget cuts. And so As you all can imagine, Hunger Free Colorado has been doing this work with a wide variety of partners and coalition members. And something we heard from the coalition was that we really wanted to protect the full Healthy School Meals for All program before any of the overflow could be used to try to bridge the gap between some of those SNAP cuts that the state is experiencing. But of course, that won't solve the entire SNAP cut problem. And this slide is particularly important for the impact that this could have on school districts. So if both Prop LL and MM pass, we're looking at taking 2 steps forward with being able to continue to offer free school lunch for all students, improve the quality of the meals, and continue to implement the rest of the pieces of Proposition FF that were paused due to lack of funding. If Prop LL and MM do not pass in November, many schools in our state will have to go back to actually charging students for the meals starting this January. And so something that's really important to note here is that when the legislature, when this bill to refer these ballot initiatives was moving its way through the legislature, they very much said, you know, let's let voters decide the fate of this program. And so that's part of why these initiatives are on this November's ballot, and why there is only sufficient funding to keep free school meals going beyond this January. If only LL passes, we're able to continue to have sufficient funding to offer free school meals for the rest of the school year without interruption. But again, from what we've heard from, you know, everyone that is touched by this program, we really want to go beyond just the free meals aspect and start to work on investing in our local farmers and having some of those other pieces that the communities have been excited to see, and schools as well, of course. And as my last slide, if you all just generally want to learn more, feel free to look up our page at hungerfreecolorado.org, where we have some more specific information on the Healthy School Meals for All program. Thank you once again, and I hope you will deeply consider this issue tonight.
Yeah, that's, I mean, our Food and Nutrition Services Director, Octavio Maiz, he provided a fact sheet about specific to our schools and how they would be affected. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the local impacts as well.
Thank you. Okay, we have 2 minutes of discussion. I just realized I've been starting only.
It's fine. Sure. I don't have anything on this. I'm in full support of both LL and MM. I think that feeding our kids is baseline and we need to continue to do everything that we can to make sure that that's happening. So I fully support passing a resolution in support of this tonight.
Yeah, not to get personal again, but I'm gonna for just a minute. Some of these programs kicked off through COVID funding and the restructuring of getting food into the hands of people that needed it. And there were distribution centers throughout the district, and one was in the 3 Mile mobile home park. And at the time, me and my family needed to show up and get extra food from them, and it helped my family a tremendous amount. Like I said, getting personal twice in a row here. So I'm really in support of these propositions. I just cannot, I would struggle to understand how to be proud of our state if we do not prioritize feeding our students. Our public schools create a safe space. Our students cannot learn and grow without the food to do it. So yeah, I'm in, all in. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanna say thank you to our team, to you know, all of our leadership that has not only supported like tapping into utilizing this and making sure that we were promoting it when we had leadership here that needed to hear our story. This has been really important for me to be a part of as not just a board member, but as a parent. And I really appreciate the time that everyone has taken, put new faces on the team that I didn't get to meet when this first became a bill. But this is something that I think as a rural school district, we are such a good model of not only how to utilize it, but how it really does benefit our students and our schools. And with the funding strains that we're having right now, like I cannot imagine the impact. I did want to just make sure I mentioned this from the staff memo. Again, thank you to the team for putting this together. But I wanted to say a couple of this from the staff memo. Our high schools, charter schools, and Carbondale Middle School did not meet the threshold to qualify for CP funding. Therefore, if POP, LL, and MM fail on the November ballot, these schools will lose state funding for Healthy School Meals for All starting January 2026. These schools will begin charging students for meals unless they qualify for free and reduced eligibility. This represents a revenue loss of approximately $30,000 per month or $150,000 for the remainder of school year 25-26. This is incredibly important. I also lend my support to this, and I appreciate the time and commitment from everybody who worked together. I wanted to thank Maria Hudi, who is a parent who left. Unfortunately, I was texting her, come back. But it's because of community leaders like her, parents like her, who have kept this at the core of the district and conversation. And I really appreciated her leadership and making sure we were part of the conversation and that we were not only utilizing it, but actually sharing it to, the state that we were a beneficiary of it. So thank you again, team. We have 5 minutes for open discussion. If there are any further questions or comments.
Just a reminder to all folks out in the community that our healthy schools and healthy kids benefit all of the jobs and the values that we hold as a community, not to mention property values. It's such an incredible investment in the actual humans and the children that are in our community. I don't know. I'm just gonna wrap it up, but
Another plug, everybody check your voter registration. Be
Yes.
prepared to vote on all these very important initiatives this fall.
Okay, are there any interview notes to amend?
No.
Okay. Can we call for a vote?
Director DeFreitas.
Aye.
Director Kuhlenberg.
Aye.
Director Ramirez.
Thank you so much. Chief Wonka, would you like for us to read this resolution? Or would you like to read the resolution?
The one that you just voted for?
I don't think we need to.
Okay.
I mean, it's a model resolution that Hunger Free Colorado provided for us, so I think you've
We got,
made a resounding endorsement.
thank you. Thank you so much, Steve.
And I'll stay here because the
He's
next
been
one is
excited.
also representing. That's okay.
don't worry, I won't get emotional about buses.
The next business in order is approval of a resolution approving the use of charter buses to transport district students to and from school activity. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution approving the use of charter buses to transport district students to and from school activity?
I move that the board approve the resolution approving the use of charter buses to transport district students to and from school activities as presented.
I second.
Chief Wonka, were you gonna say a couple things or?
I'm happy to. I mean, I think the memo summarizes it, but just for the public's information, we continue to have a pretty, we have a bus driver shortage, and school districts across the state and across the country have experienced that since COVID. People just didn't really come back and want to drive buses. And so we continue to recruit. We continue to try to pay competitively, but it's a hard job to get people to do. And so we also have a few of our long-term drivers out on extended medical leave for a variety of reasons right now. And it really puts us in a crunch when there's a lot of sports. This is the big week, actually, tomorrow and the next day, especially with lots of different sports going on, as well as, the Basalt schools do their experiential ed where everybody goes somewhere from Basalt High School. That really pushes us to our max. And other schools have field trips as well. So we've learned, our transportation director, Sherry Martinez, has learned in consultation with people at the Colorado Department of Education that we really need to have a resolution in place to charter outside companies to run a trip. So we don't plan to use this unless it's absolutely necessary, but we just need to have the authority in place from the board. So it's a last resort before we cancel a trip.
Director Goldberg?
I don't have any comments on this. I think it's smart to have this in place in case we need it. So thank you for bringing it and being proactive about it.
Director DeFreitas?
Same.
Thank you so much to our team for staying with the flag and for bringing it forward to the board. Any further discussion, comments? No, can you call roll?
Director DeFreitas.
Aye.
Director Kohlenberg.
Aye.
Director Ramirez.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next business in order is a presentation from the District Accountability Committee with Bridget Durkash presenting.
Thank you. Perfect. Hi, thank you all for having me. My name is Bridget Durkash. I'm the chair of the District Accountability Committee. And so our goals tonight are to give you a little bit of an update on the DAC and to go over our suggestions for the Unified Improvement Plan. Our suggestions this year for the Unified Improvement Plan are really looking at our website and our strategic plan and sort of the steps that the school district is taking for year 2 and looking at it from a committee of areas that we had questions and reasons why those questions were important. And so that's sort of what I'm going to walk you through today. But first, I want to share a little bit about the DAC. Oh, and I'm not moving it on my screen. So here we go. A little bit about the DAC. We're tiny right now, but we are growing. There's 4 members. Allison Hargarten has students at Sopris Elementary School. She is a school psychologist previously and now is working in the field of early childhood education. Elizabeth Cockrell Taylor, she has 4 students who've either gone through the district or are currently in the district at Roaring Fork High School, Basalt High School, Basalt Middle School, and Basalt Elementary School. And then Amy Westervelt, who has students enrolled at Crystal River Elementary School. And myself, I have students at Glenwood Springs Elementary School. So although we're a small group, we do have a reach sort of at schools across the valley. You can see up here, though, that we're missing some really key components of the DAC. We don't have representation from charter schools. And so that's something that we're actively working on at the moment. We're also working on recruiting teachers and administrators to be a part of our committee. So more to come throughout this school year of how the DAC is growing and really working to support the school district. So our purpose for feedback this year is it's a part of our job as the DAC to provide feedback regularly and on an annual basis. Last year, you might remember that we did not provide feedback until the spring. And so we're working really hard to really provide that in a more timely fashion this year. Our goals are to ensure that community priorities are reflected in the UIP and that there's just more clear understanding for all of the family members that are trying to understand this stuff. It's nice having a committee that is small and new because we really are coming at this with a learner's mind and trying to understand, which may reflect the community's engagement as well in areas that they may have questions. So our first recommendation is around early learning. So the UIP mentions pre-K or preschool through kindergarten attendance tracking, but it lacks details on school readiness. There's limited information that we were able to find on metrics for toddlers and preschool aged children, including social, emotional, and language development. When we were looking at this, we thought that this could really help really addressing successful students throughout their whole trajectory through life. Thinking specifically about the preschool to prison pipeline and thinking about the measures that were already presented today. I just think that this is something that goes in alignment with that. Families from underserved backgrounds may face barriers to high quality early childhood education, which I know as a community is something we're already addressing. The opportunities here are to use readiness metrics to inform targeted intervention before kindergarten. And so this would be something that we could bring into preschools that are associated with the district, but also as a community could look at larger. So increasing transparency for families, really to see how the district is preparing students from the very start. Our next area was looking at the student first belonging and safety area of the strategic plan. Our observations are that, sorry, I was on the wrong slide. We really had more questions on this area, and are posing those to you all. We were interested in where families can find the or where families in the community can see the district investing in social emotional support staff. We were interested in roles like school psychologists, counselors, social workers, to see if those were adequately sourced across schools to provide universal support and not just through the special ed related services. We were also curious about what social emotional learning screeners are being piloted across the schools. Do we have personnel and supports in place to follow up with students who need those additional help? And these were areas that we had questions on, thinking about community members just being able to access this from the website, and especially on the strategic plan and the dashboard that's currently out there. Are there easy ways for parents to sort of look this information up? We just thought that the increased visibility of staffing for social emotional initiatives for families could really support families in understanding how their students are being served and if they need help as an area to be able to access those resources. It also ensures consistency across social emotional supports for all schools, and not just specific schools, and then strengthening referral networks with our community partners. So trying to make sure that if we're not able to provide those, there's so many organizations in the Valley that are, and so making sure those referrals are there. And again, just creating more access for families, having that visible. The next spot we were looking at was students first, looking at the discipline and behavior, and looking at the discipline matrix. And again, we really just had more questions than anything. And some of those big questions were, how is the district collecting and incorporating teacher and family feedback on the new discipline matrix? And the reason for that is just knowing that inclusive feedback ensures that the system is fair and effective and really reflective of the community, reducing disproportionate discipline and improving trust between families and schools. We also were looking at some of the implementation of evidence-based practices. So looking at positive behavioral intervention supports in elementary schools and restorative practices in our middle schools and high schools. And we're just curious about what that looks like. And again, those were areas that we thought, oh, this could be reflected. We know that these are things that are happening, but how can we reflect that? So families have more access to it. So the opportunities and in questions here are just to improve clarity and accessibility of discipline frameworks for families with the goal of supporting parents' engagement and understanding, ensuring consistent training and implementation across the district to improve equity and effectiveness, and gathering ongoing feedback from staff and families to ensure that the system is responsive and continuously improving. Rigorous learning and outcome metrics. On here, we just noticed that the graduation rate, 89.7% in 2003 to 2004, is not predominantly featured in the strategic plan dashboard. And so we thought that this could be an outcome metric that reflects overall student success and making it more visible to families in the community to monitor long-term achievement and identify early gaps. And then the next one was around coaching, rigorous learning with the coaching and instruction. Our questions really were stemming from early childhood back, and there's some really specific and strategic coaching models that are used. And so our main question was, what is the coaching model that's adopted for teachers and administrators? And then how is that feedback on coaching platform collected? And again, we know that this is already happening, but just curious of, can we have more visibility and clarity on this so that
so that there's just more clear communication. We know that effective coaching, which is something that's already being implemented by the district, improves instruction quality and supports teachers' growth. But feedback loops really ensure that the system's responsive and aligned with classroom needs. And so wanting to make sure that those things are there. So what could curricula, and then the next part on this is around curriculum transparency. This is something else that we weren't able to see on the district website, and wondering if there is a way to be able to look at, okay, my student is in 3rd grade, what is the math curriculum that they're learning? Or high school, what is that? And again, it's already something that's being done, but just having more transparency around it was one of the areas that we were looking at. Transparency allows families to engage in the child's learning. It reinforces learning at home, and it supports equity and access to rigorous content. And then the last part on here was around data transparency. So what we were really looking at here, this was an interesting conversation, but we were curious if there was a way to add a proficiency bell curve showing the bottom, middle, and top thirds of students across subjects and grade levels. Right now, there's just sort of 1 point that you're seeing where students are at, just the average. And why we thought this would be helpful is it would help educators, families, and communities see the full distribution of student performance, not just the average or subgroup comparisons, providing a more nuanced understanding of growth and opportunities for all students, which might be overlooked through traditional subgrouping reporting. We're just curious on where students fall on that proficiency spectrum and sort of allowing students prioritize resources, support, addressing both struggling and high achieving learners. And the consideration here is just incorporating proficiency bell curves into the district data dashboard so families can easily access and understand student performance trends. And then this last slide I have here is just a summary of the recommendations. So those really are to expand early learning readiness metrics, increase transparency in social emotional staffing and investments, collect and share feedback on discipline, social emotional screeners and coaching systems, improve dashboard visibility of graduation rates and subgroup proficiency data, and make curriculum access easier for families. Again, I think the thing that we all wanted to stress from the district accountability committee is we know that these things are already happening, but if there's a way to just have more transparency about them, the dashboard is so amazing to be able to look at data on the school websites. And these were just some of the areas that we found when we were looking at it that we had questions. And that's the presentation for today. Thank you so much. Okay, we have 2 minutes for board members to ask questions. Director Cooper.
Sure. Thank you so much for being here and for all the work that you all are doing and helping to build the deck up and get new members in. And I know it's not an easy lift. I think this is a great presentation and it's different than some of the formats we've seen in the past. And kind of what you ended with is really what I kept coming back to as you were presenting, is this is a lot of opportunities on how we can communicate with our families. Because even being back in this re-election cycle, that's primarily what you hear is that people feel like they don't know. And so how can we make it easier for them to know what's going on? So I think this really highlights that for me. Because when you're in it, you forget that. Like you oftentimes forget that it is not super easy to navigate the website and find all of these things and log on to CD and see, achievement data and all that stuff. So I really appreciate the way that you guys approached this and came at it, because I think that there are some very specific things that we could take from this and some easy fixes to address some of the concerns. So thank you. Thank you for all the work you're doing, and let us know how we can support you to increase membership. It's an ongoing battle.
We're going to get there this year.
We're going to get there. That's right.
Thank you. Director.
Yeah, echoing Director Kuhlenberg, and I was just interested too in where we might see alignment in the efforts around curriculum development and continuity, and the interest in more transparency into what the kids have access to at different grades. I know right now that isn't easy to find unless you know how to ask your teacher specifically for curriculum. And I'm sometimes torn as a former educator where if you'd asked me, what curriculum are you using? Like, I would have told you kind of, but was that what we were doing today? Maybe not. So I'm interested in staff's continue, you don't have to weigh in now, but just kind of considering like what is the method forward for better transparency there? Because I think that does build a lot more parent trust when parents just know what's being covered. I mean, I understand that can also invite some controversy and some discussion around like zooming in maybe a little more. And I think as we move forward in the current climate, I think that's a good point. If it costs us not a lot to be a little bit more upfront about the content, does that gain us the trust and the understanding? And so I don't know that I have a solution going forward, but I really appreciated that point specifically, that you brought that up. So thank you. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you. It's a lot to volunteer time to be part of the DAF. I really appreciate it. I am excited you're here. I look forward to meeting Allison and Amy and look forward to our continued collaboration moving forward. We really do as a board appreciate that the District Accountability Committee is autonomous of the district so that we can have accountability and transparency where needed and as much as possible. Because it does help us as the district here, have the ears to the, schools ground, to really understand what some of the concerns are coming up. So we really appreciate your time and your commitment and being part of this team. And we look forward to working with you moving forward.
Thank you.
We have 5 minutes for open discussion. If anybody has further questions or comments.
What can we do for you guys that would help support your work? What's not being done?
We feel really supported right now. We're doing a lot of outreach at the moment, and we're excited because we do have potentially 5 people that are interested in joining the deck, and we haven't even done like our big lifts yet. We've been doing some really strategic outreach, but that's really exciting. So our goal is to grow the deck from 4 to 12 this year. And then that will help us just be so much more effective. Right now, we're just sort of doing the bare minimum and struggling to sort of do that, where if we have more people, then we can be really in touch with the SACs at each of the different schools, and have more attendance at the board meetings and just sort of be a more effective committee. So we're getting
Do you
there.
have access to all the information regarding the meetings?
Yes, we do.
Great.
Yeah, we've had really great support, and our website just got updated. It looks great. So we're getting there. We're like, wow, this is great.
And when is your next meeting? Sorry.
Our next meeting, I'd have to double check. I think it's October. Let's see.
And Director.
Is it the 3rd?
Yeah.
I'm like, and now I should be able to easily just go to the website because
That's
it's
okay. It's
right
probably on my
listed,
calendar too. I was just-
listed on there. 13th. Tuesday the 14th. Thank you. Yeah, perfect. Any other questions?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. The next business in order is discussion on policies BID, BIE, KDB, KLG, and regulation KLG-R. Okay, not gonna lie, that shocked me a little bit. Policies reading.
Can't escape policies.
Uh,
It's because we just now got policies.
Director Crozier?
That's okay.
My brain's right.
I don't think I have anything on these policies. I was just looking back through them to see if there was anything that needed to be followed up on. I don't believe that there was. We've had particularly light policy committees the last couple of weeks. but the BIE just reflects a slight shift and aligns our language to statute, which I think was important. And KDB increases the fee, so that was easy. KLG and KLG-R are more substantive and might require some discussion. We did make some significant changes to both and ran them by legal counsel to ensure that we were compliant and also stayed within the values and norms of our district. So I don't have anything specific on any of them.
Yeah, same. I have appreciated that it's been light policies as I get warmed up on policy committee. I cannot keep up with you guys yet, but I'm working on it fast. So I don't have a lot to add after sitting in on the discussion from these. Again, just appreciate the thoroughness of staff and the strong foundation laid over the last few years of this work. So.
Thank you. I don't believe I have any questions. Sorry. I'm sure there's nothing I need to flag. I don't have any questions. Thank you, team. Oh, we have 5 minutes. I'd like to add further comments. Thank you. The next business in order is board updates and appreciation.
Okay. Updates and appreciations, updates. Like I said, policy committee has been light. As you all know, I'm running for re-election, so that will begin to take up more of my time this fall. We're getting close to kind of go time for all of that. I don't think I have any other updates. I handed off the DAC to director after. So I think that's it there. For appreciations, I wanted to give a shout out to our food services who are here tonight. I think that I've heard resoundingly from my community that they've been very happy with changes to menus in our schools. So kids have been happy, parents are happy, which I think is awesome and really speaks to the work that they're doing. They're listening, they're making changes, they're adjusting, which is awesome. And then also to the teachers, staff, parents, and to BEF, who are all supporting all of the outdoor education adventures over the last few weeks. I've watched buses of kids unload at the end of some weeks of kids and parents who are dirty and tired. And it looks like they had a great time, but they also look dead exhausted. But I know these are formative experiences for the kids and that a lot of growing and changing and all of those good things happen. And so I'm grateful that our community, our staff, our families, everybody gets around these experiences for the kids and signs up to do the dirty work. So thank you to all of them. And that's all I've got.
Thank you. Director DeFreedy.
Yes, I don't think I have a lot of updates. I think we covered most of the discussion around labor management committee last time, keeping up with policy committee. I am reaching out to just say hello to the school accountability committees at some point in the next few months for the schools I represent, and I'm looking forward to going to Two Rivers tomorrow night for their big celebration. And I want to appreciate the crew teachers at Glenwood Springs Middle School. They're really doing a great job. I know I bring this up every year, but it's because they keep doing it, of putting that true essence of crew into play. They have the multi grade level crew that stays the same throughout all 3 years that your student is there. And my student had 6th grade with Miss Alsop, and he is back 7th grade with Miss Alsop as his crew teacher. And even just his reflections on wow, it feels different to walk into a seventh grade classroom when you're a seventh grader and starting to build that like understanding and empathy of what it's like to be in these different grade levels because he has that home base and that continuing relationship. He's doing cross country and she's the coach and he almost didn't want to go and she wasn't going to be here. So there's a lot of effort going into those relationships. And he's also up at Dinosaur National Monument camping right now. He's on the second wave. The first wave I heard got pretty wet. So definitely appreciate all those teachers who are drying out and the extra effort that goes into making those programs accessible to all the students in the grade and not making it only sort of accessible to a few.
Thank you. I wanna just give an update on two things. I was able, thank you to CMC for hosting the consulate forum with the consulates of Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, and Mexico. It was really important not only to be there as a representative of the district and our students and families, but to also be part of that networking group. I think there are a lot of leaders in our community, a lot of alumni of the Roaring Fork School District who hold amazing leadership positions in their organizations. And so it was really good to be there and to hear some of the updates that I think are important in at a moment, especially like this, where there's so many changes coming into effect. I also want to say thank you and also update that Director After and I were able to go to the Fall Fest for Summit 54, which is like their fundraiser and a big event, just thanking a lot of their donors and actually asking a lot of people for money. But it was really, really great. Superintendent was there to share some of our growth and appreciation. I think it was just really important for us to be there with one of our partners. I would encourage any of our partners who wants the board or the superintendent to be at an event to please invite us. We would like to be invited. I think it's important for us to be there, especially as some of our partners are asking for support as board members to be there and lend our support to these organizations that give their time, their energies, that volunteer, that create programming for our students, whether it's during school hours or after school. So thank you to Summit 54, thank you to Terry Kane, and thank you to our team for being there and showing up. And my appreciation tonight, so just to echo, I remembered right now that Director Kuhlenberg was sharing my kiddo. So my husband is from Honduras, and so you know, typically I cook Mexican food because that is what I know how to make. But my kiddo came home last Friday. I was just so excited because they had pupusas at school, and it was the best day of her life. I cannot express to you how, like, it was like her high. We do highs and lows. It was like her high, her rose, like it was the whole shebang, and I was so grateful because it meant so much to her. So I mean, my kiddo's 7. I hope she's in bed, but really doubt it. But to have your kiddo feel I think not only represented but also like to be excited about lunch is really cool. So thank you to our team, thank you to our lunch ladies, our school meals crew. I really as a parent appreciate your dedication to our students' meals. And then I just want to plug that tomorrow night my kiddo's school, Two Rivers Community School, is hosting their Hispanic Heritage Festival. And so from 5:30 to 7:30, they will have mariachi and Zumba and traditional Latin food. So if anyone has time, please come join us at Two Rivers to celebrate all the amazing things about our heritage. And that is it. Okay. If there's no further business and there's no objection, the meeting will be adjourned at 8:19 p.m.